Ellen Miller is Associate Professor of Philosophy here at Rowan University. She's also the chair of the Philosophy and Religion Studies Department, something for which we are tremendously grateful for all the work that she does for us. She got her PhD from York University in Toronto, Canada in 2001. She has taught at Rowan. When did you come to Rowan? Right after?
Yes.
2001?
15 years.
15 years, so she's been here for a while. And she's an incredibly valued member of our department, of course. Her areas of scholarly research include philosophy of art and literature, continental philosophy, especially Heidegger and Merleau-Ponty, feminist theory, especially feminist ethics and philosophy of religion, and ethics. And Rowan, she teaches courses in ethics, philosophy and gender, and social and political philosophy. She's also the author of a monograph, Releasing Philosophy, Thinking Art, a bodily hermeneutic of 4 poems by Sylvia Plath. She's actually done quite a bit of research on Plath and is continuing to work on Plath. So has published several papers on Plath as well as papers on gender in dance and film and environmental philosophy with an emphasis on ecofeminism and also on Plath's environmental thought. And she is, in fact, currently working on a paper on Plath and medicine?
Paper for Plath studies.
For Plath studies on Plath and medicine. And she's also, working on this paper, which she's going to give to us today, which is called Building, Dwelling, and Lego Toys. I'd like everyone to please welcome Professor Ellen Miller.
Thank you, Dr. Kazarian. So I'm glad you could all join us today. Please feel free to play. I do believe that philosophy should be done with a playful spirit, and so I hope this will remain interactive and we can maintain the living spirit of philosophy of which Dr. Kazarian spoke. So the piece that I'm going to share with you today is an excerpt from an article that will come out next year. It's been accepted for publication in the new Blackwell publishing series of philosophy and popular culture of the book Lego and Philosophy. So this is an excerpt of that piece, and I find the Blackwell series really exciting because it's geared towards an everyday audience, and this is often challenging for philosophers to write for a general audience. There can't be any jargon. This might still be a little bit jargon heavy. I need to go through and even remove some more of the jargon. So I find that series really exciting because I think philosophy really is relevant to our everyday lives, and I like this series that is geared towards a general audience. As Dr. Kazarian said, my other scholarly work is on Plath. They do a lot of work there as well. And the Plath work can get a little bit heavy, so this is also very fun. So I wanted to make sure that I show our students too that, and the Plath work, I do find it very fun. This is a different kind of fun, where you're watching the Lego movie and playing with Lego, and I've been able to engage with a lot of my son's play groups and watching children play with Lego and thinking about it. So without further ado, the structure of the paper is broken into 8 different parts that I've listed here. The main guiding theme throughout our entire talk today concerns Heidegger's understanding of mood. Right? So last year when I started thinking about this paper, I was thinking about Heidegger's notions of Befindlichkeit and Stimmung, and I thought this was really important, this notion of play, this attitude of play, and this attitude of boredom. Heidegger writes about both play and boredom quite a bit. And cognitive scientists have now confirmed much of Heidegger's more phenomenological findings, or his descriptions of mood as really important, and this understanding of mood as something that's not just your inner mood, not just something you have. I think we still commonly talk that way. Heidegger has a more broad social understanding of mood. So the main claim that runs throughout this entire study is that the moods that we develop through play, in this case Lego play, so I'm glad you were all playing for a bit to kind of get back to when you may have been playing with Lego. I think for some people it might have been yesterday, which is good. I don't think we should ever abandon Lego play. But the moods we develop through play, in this case Lego play, are helpful for developing an ethic grounded in responsive use and a saving attitude towards the earth. Right, so I think that Lego play has much to teach philosophy, and philosophy can help us better understand what's happening when we engage in play. All right, so how many people have seen the Lego movie? Oh, you have. Okay, good. All right, so half of you have seen it. All right. All right, so part of the piece deals just with Lego play in general. So I think that's accessible to everybody. If you've seen the Lego movie, I also was asked by the editors to deal with issues in the Lego movie. So I think that helps to enrich the piece as well. So quickly about the movie where everything is awesome. I won't sing the song about it. It's a very addictive song. So a lot of philosophical themes that run through the film, where the main character, Emmett, is on this search for identity, and he meets various villains along the way. And there are questions about the role that they're very existentialist questions, I think, that are raised by the entire Lego movie, as we're going to see. So I think the movie can be quite helpful for further understanding existentialism. And as we remember, those of you who've studied and read existentialism, there are several major themes that run through most existentialist writings. It's very hard to pin down existentialists. They wouldn't want to be pinned down and labeled at all, yet I'm going to do it on a PowerPoint slide. Apologies to all that are being referred to here. But there are major themes that run through these writings, namely discussion of authenticity and what that might mean. So this is especially crucial for Heidegger. It's unclear whether his notions of authenticity have a moral element or not. I think they do. So an embracing of commitment, discussion of anxiety and what that might mean and what that can reveal to us, commitment to freedom, emphasis on the subjectivity of an individual, questioning about death and the role of death. So this is sometimes what really turns people off about Heidegger too. They say he's talking a lot about death. Yes, but equally important for him too is this discussion of play, and his discussion of death is meant to transform us completely. So Heidegger also embraced this idea, as other existentialists did, that philosophy really has a place in our everyday lives. And in fact, that discussion of death is meant to be just transformative of your everyday life. And they also discuss not just the individual, but our being with other people, the situated self and the embodied self. All right, so a little bit on the understanding of mood that I'm using here is that for Heidegger, he understands mood as attunement. Lovely word. So the two German words, namely Befindlichkeit, brings this up, this idea that we can become attuned to other people and to ourselves. So mood for him is a kind of ontological tuning or attunement, so it's active or attunement. And it's the attitude of Dasein, which is Heidegger's term for a human being. It's an attitude of Dasein and a being, or the mode in which being is revealed and concealed. Right, so mood, he says, least of all, so this is kind of shocking, least of all denotes merely the subjective or inner, so-called interior of man. Right, so even theory is going to presuppose a mood. Right, so I'm going to get into the paper. That's a little bit of background on mood and existentialism. Throughout Heidegger's writings, he contemplates our relationship with things, nature, and others. At the center of his concern is the way we comport ourselves thoughtfully or thoughtlessly, carefully or carelessly, authentically or inauthentically. Our moods, not understood as primarily private, disclose meaning and direct our actions. His understanding of mood is especially instructive for revealing how we can learn through play. Indeed, play for Heidegger is fundamentally serious and is not just those times we break from our more important work and goals. In this chapter, we will explore how Heidegger's writings can help us better understand Lego play, as well as the Lego movie. So I explore here 5 key themes in Heidegger's work. First, authenticity, technology, his notion of commodification, care, and the importance of art. From their beginning in 1932, Lego toys have expressed and were designed with an ethos grounded in simplicity, care, fun, and sustainability. The name Lego, an abbreviation of the Danish godt, means play well. This includes an ethical and a social mandate telling you what to do to play, and how do you play? You're going to play well. This ethos can also be found in contemporary Lego organizations such as Lego Serious Play, a community-based business model where participants use Lego materials for professional development. That's a real thing. I don't know if anybody's taken part in any of these Lego professional management courses. It's interesting. So they bring in the Lego. We might try this, sorry to my faculty members. There might be things we can learn there. This organization, the only one of its kind officially approved by the Lego Group, extends Lego values into the adult business world. Interestingly, the LEGO group and LEGO Serious Play articulate an explicit systemization, yet they also at the same time endorse openness, flexibility, and creativity. So that's the idea here. These LEGO business people are going to come in and teach you how to be open and flexible. There's kind of a tension there that we're going to look at later. LEGO Corporation's emphasis on openness parallels Heidegger's emphasis on openness, releasement, and working creatively within the given structure of history and culture. All right. Martin Heidegger is often characterized as an existentialist thinker and writer. Heidegger would have resisted such labeling, but I'm going to embrace it for a bit here so I can make some of the points I want to make. His piece of resistance is not surprising, given that one major existentialist theme is the importance of individuality and our subjective personal lives. For Heidegger, there's no necessary and predetermined human nature. Each person must define what it means to be human by choosing how to act. We must make our lives meaningful since objects and encounters do not come with prepackaged meanings. So within the LEGO movie, when Vitruvius tells Emmett, don't worry about what others are doing, you must embrace what is special about you. His pronouncement parallels his existentialist theme. We must make our own lives special and awesome through our own efforts and actions. Emmett's journey alongside the master builders, those able to build without instructions, shows some of the difficulties involved in stepping outside the norms of one's society. All right, so then we get to some tension with the individual and society. Even though existentialist thinkers embrace the importance of the individual, their accounts emphasize that we all find ourselves in the same situation of being solely responsible for our choices and values. For Heidegger, we find ourselves in the world with other people. Usually, we're comfortably absorbed in the values and ideas that stem from what he calls das Man, which can be translated as the they self or the one. We find ourselves in a world filled with others where we learn what one does not do and what one does do. So one does not throw Lego bricks at the table or eat them. One can play with them. This is what one does. In the LEGO movie, the awesomeness of teamwork makes it comfortable and easy to conform and not stand out as unique. And that's where Emmett begins. He loves being in the team. Everything's awesome when you're part of a team. That's the LEGO song. And he loves it. He loves it. He's fine. It's easy to conform and not stand out as unique. Hearing, listening, being open to others is part of how we understand the world. And yet, these voices can limit the ability to step outside and speak with our own authentic voice. One way we make sense of ourselves and our worlds is through what Heidegger calls our moods, Befindlichkeit. Moods influence and determine how things matter to us. In fact, he considers them part of the fundamental structure of care, along with understanding and discourse. So these three main elements that make up the structure of caring. So it's our moods, understanding, and then language. Heidegger's writings always return to an emphasis on our relationship with things, ourselves, and other people. So even in Being in Time, he's talking about the goddess care. So that notion of care runs through the early writings on through to the later writings. The way we act, listen to others, and reflect on our actions influence our world, and our worlds, in turn, influence the ways we act and respond to other people. We often take this for granted, because you might say, of course. And this is in part because Heidegger's views have become an accepted part of how we view the world. We're not just separate from the world, we're always what he calls being in the world with the hyphens. We do not just find ourselves in situations that we then work to understand. Our own actions, choices, and values influence the situations in which we find ourselves. So let's say we like taking care of animals. You like animals, you like taking care of children. When you look at a pile of Lego bricks, you might then create an animal hospital. You might then create a school. So what you care about influences then the situations where you find ourselves. Our concerns and ways of attuning ourselves to the world allow us to see the world at all, and that they influence how the world is going to show up for us. So one and the same object, one and the same Lego brick can show up differently depending on what your cares are. If you're the janitor coming in to clean up the Lego toys, you're going to see something different than the dog that is going to try to eat the Lego toys. Or if your concerns are you like guns, you might turn it into a gun versus I like the animal hospital better. But your mood is going to influence that. Well, we're coming to you. Okay. Now, all right. So there are some fundamental moods that are going to be disclosed in our study. So I've touched on this, the mood of care. So we're also going to talk about the mood of play. That's poetic mood, technological mood, it's coming soon, and the mood of boredom, which I hope you're not in right now. But you might be, because it's quite pervasive in our time. All right, so these are some of the key moods. And this I found really interesting too, because many parents like Lego toys, right? Because they're low tech and they can seem to be a way of stepping outside this technological attitude that we often have towards the world. And yet the Lego Corporation has become quite Disney-like now these, because there's Lego Land, there's a Lego amusement park, they're making a lot of money. There's some tension there, right? So we'll talk about that a little bit during this technological part. And I'm curious what you think about that too, so we can talk about that during the discussion section. I'm not quite there yet. All right. So when we hear the word mood, and even though I've read a lot of Heidegger, I think I often still think, yeah, personal mood. What's my mood? You know, what kind of mood are you in? You know, I think it's easy to think that way. However, Heidegger doesn't just confine mood to a subjective experience. So he knows we have emotions. I mean, he's not denying that. He's not that wacky. We do not just look out at the world neutrally, he thinks. Rather, the same object will show up differently depending on our practical situations and the context in which we find ourselves. Right? So that helps to explain what I was saying about the dog versus the child versus the person that's interested in guns. So that same object will look different. Right? So we don't just gaze out at the world in this neutral way. So I think his insights about care and moods are particularly helpful for understanding two major moods that characterize childhood activities, and that is play and boredom. I think these carry through into adulthood. And I think childhood is particularly interesting, right? Because unlike other social variables like class and gender, we all had a childhood. We had different childhoods. But that is a temporal realm in which we all have been. Right? So I think it's particularly important. Philosophers haven't said quite enough about that. So I'm very interested in how we can preserve much of what I think we need to preserve from childhood. So I think Heidegger's writings are helpful here in helping us better understand those modes of play and boredom. So whether our building arises through solitary play or building alongside others, our moods help determine our sense of what is possible for us and others. Like the young boy Emmett, whose open ways of thinking and building propel the Lego movie's story, for many of us, our first Lego building took place at home, which I think that's interesting. Our future creating might arise in different settings with friends or the organized building of a Lego First League. Anybody in any of these, the Lego leagues? They're everywhere now. So they have Lego building leagues for children as young as 6 and 7 on through high school, where you eventually get to build really cool robots. So, and that's really building with others, and you're part of a team, and it's highly organized. One of my best friends is a judges for the Lego leagues, and she's meticulous. It's really systematized, which is, again, interesting. So you're building, but it's very ordered and disciplined. Right? And yet these early building experiences, including our emotional connections to the building, which I would claim is important, and psychologists have proven that that connection is important. So even when, for example, when you're reading to a child, good to read to a child, most people would agree that. So studies show too that it matters if the child's being held or not. So I'm picking up on that here and claiming that our emotional connection to the building of the Lego remains part of our memories and is in fact important. So the way the building is done is important. So it's not just what we build, it's that emotional connection to the building. Our building in the present also contains our looking forward into the future at the potential and infinite creations we can construct. So the modular structure of the Lego, I think, are important. So it's endless and infinite creations that you can construct. So as we move from our humble yet glorious Duplo days, so Marianne has some example of the easier to build with Lego Duplo. They're pre-5, right? Yes. Yeah, I can handle those. Yeah. It's harder. These are harder.
And those are the later years.
Yeah, exactly. So we can build. See, they have a lot of people. Yeah. Okay. Already given to you, right? Yeah. So as we move from those humble beginnings to our more sophisticated Lego art creations, I'll show you some of these. They are amazing. I don't know if we were talking about this last night, I think, Nathan, about some of these Lego creations. So this is a Lego shoe. And this is, can't quite see that. This might not be the best. This one's better, I think. But this is an exhibit that's going on, that was going on last year, of Lego creations out in nature. Amazing artwork. So the editor of our Lego book designs it. I was a little intimidated to submit to this because I saw his artworks first. This man really knows his Lego creations. All right, so that's the sophisticated realm of Lego. All of this creation, I would claim, helps us learn about temporality, or our relationship with time. Humans are, according to Heidegger, marked by always looking ahead into the future. So we're always trying to think about, the next step to what's going to happen tonight. What am I doing tomorrow? I'm hurried, trying to get ahead. We're projecting forward. Yet our past encounters leave their mark on our present experiences and our expectations for the future. Childhood play and being playful show up the interconnections among our present situations, past encounters, and our future horizons. When we're most engaged in our building and creating, past, present, and future are connected. This is important because one's past does not completely limit and determine the future, yet it remains impactful. Constructing and creating with Lego toys helps us understand how we're always creating and recreating, building and constructing our own identities and possibilities. This is especially important for the adult Lego creator who can maintain what one Lego artist calls a sense of youthfulness. They said this is one reason that he chooses Lego. He could choose other things, right? So he chooses it because it helps him retain his sense of youthfulness through creating with childhood toys. All right. There's some danger coming here. All right. So in this next section is the dangers of technology and commodification. Even though we have this fundamental capacity for care, and in fact, Heidegger thinks there's something that's gone wrong if we are not caring and preserving the things of this world and ourselves. We're somehow missing the dignity of Dasein. But even though we have this fundamental capacity for care, Heidegger thinks our careful nature can easily be covered over by more dominant ways of relating with things. Often we may confront things as disposable resources, like the styrofoam cup that we just use up and throw away, and we use things in any way that we wish. Think about how we use waterways, plastics, natural gas, and even other people in ways that maximize their efficiency and productivity. Even our free time and vacations are designed often in ways that will maximize our productivity once we return to work. Exposing the problems of this technological worldview and the resulting calculative thinking is one of Heidegger's main themes throughout his writings. Our contemporary way of relating differs from earlier ways in that it blocks out other possibilities, more gentle and open ways of dealing with the world. Quote, "The revealing that rules in modern technology is a challenging herausfordern which puts to nature the unreasonable demand that it supply energy which can be extracted and stored as such. The potential for commodification and systemization during our building with modular Lego bricks parallels this potential in our broader relationships with nature, artworks, and people." A main theme within the Lego movie is whether even children's play has become commodified. So this is potentially even more dangerous if we can't escape this ever. Has children's play become commodified to such an extent that open and free play is becoming impossible? We could view the entire movie as a sustained advertisement, cleverly crafted, yet not even hidden, because the movie knows what it is. So it's quite aware. It's very postmodern in that way. It knows what it's doing. It's not hidden. To look like an endorsement of individuality. So the whole movie is about, oh, individuality is good, and yet it's a whole entire ad for Lego. The Lego industry's growth into a Disney-like entity, hotels, amusement parks, play sets, and they're expensive. These, anybody knows, there's a reason there's knockoff Lego. These things are expensive. I like eBay for buying my Lego. So amusement parks play sets that accompany blockbuster films. There are Harry Potter sets, Batman sets, there are Legos, all kinds of Lego sets, can leave us yearning for a space outside the influence of advertising. I think Heidegger's writings help explain how Lego users can resist our culture's emphasis on commodification. In fact, his writings teach us an important lesson about the inescapable dangers of commodification. It would be nice if there was a possible world without lurid business and without bad cop within the film. However, this place does not exist. Our world and Lego worlds are filled with dangers and the ever-present threat of destruction. So you're always under the threat that somebody's going to come along, probably your sibling, and destroy what you have created. One of the main ways we can guard against these dangers is by becoming mindful, aware, and attuned to our everyday worlds. In this way, we become philosophical Lego builders. Part of the essence of Lego work is that we must return to our building each day. Even if we craggle our creations, where'd the craggle go? Craggle is crazy glue, so you just, some of the letters are missing. And this is a debate with children. Some kids want to always keep their Lego, they store them in their closet and keep them together. Some people rip them apart. But even if you glue together your creations to try to keep them, new creations will require even more unglued bricks. So this is ever present. When we play with Lego toys, we eventually realize our creations can be taken apart or knocked down. But I'm sure the person did not mean to do it. Heidegger explains that those moments of destruction are opportunities for understanding. So at the very moment that your piece is being destroyed, you can become even more mindful and philosophical. When a tool or a piece of equipment no longer works, Heidegger says we begin to observe it in a more detached and objective manner. So his example is of the hammer. We might take a different example of a cook in a kitchen, or one that we've all had. When your printer breaks down, all of a sudden you really think about your printer in a way that you have not thought about your printer before. Usually you just go about interacting with your printer. So it's at this moment of destruction that Heidegger says all kinds of interesting philosophical things can happen. Heidegger names our relationship with tools when we are engaged with them and using them as ready to hand. If we stand back and view the tool at a distance, more like how the scientist would in weighing the hammer and objectifying it, we are analyzing the tool as something as what he calls present at hand. So that's more the scientific attitude. Even though our age privileges the knowledge and understanding produced by the detached techniques that turn nature and things into present at hand entities, Heidegger thinks that connectedness with things, where we're actively engaged with the hammer, actively engaged with the pots and pans in the kitchen, actively engaged with the Lego, that to him is more basic. That is more primordial for him, and that undergirds all of our scientific theorizing, in fact. So that basic connectedness is more basic and more primordial. For Heidegger, our engaged, lived experience with things tell us more about what it means, in fact, to be human. Childhood often involves these sustained encounters, driven by discovery and openness towards multiple possibilities. And this shows up in children's attitudes towards gender, right? Because children are much more open and flexible about gender, particularly in the under 4 age group. They're influenced by adults. So if adults start limiting what they, say this is what one does when one's a girl, if they don't do that, kids are much more open, right? So, and I think if that gets destroyed in childhood, something's gone wrong. So obviously there are ways and moral issues with all of that. That's part of what I would claim should be part of childhood, is this openness and discovery. Right, so here's an ad from, that's a 1950s, 1960s ad. So now a little bit more about play. Play, perhaps especially when our creation needs to be built again and again. So that's the demand of the Legos, right? So it's waiting there for you to keep building. Can awaken us to ways of relating with things where we do not seek mastery over them. So that's a possibility. Play is marked by an openness to things where we do not need to completely understand and control them. Though admittedly, play can also fall back into more inauthentic and mastering attitudes. In play, we let things be and let ourselves be with others in ways that follow Heidegger's call for more meditative thinking. Existence is fundamentally, for Heidegger, without why. So he's following the mystic Meister Eckhart here. Existence is fundamentally without why, without a definite purpose, meaning, or ground. So like play. Even time unfolds in ways that are not completely under our control and mastery. John Caputo explains that for Heidegger, the history of philosophy is the playing of being with man. So the term play is crucial there. Heidegger uses the term play to explain his most important ideas. Our everyday play can show traces of this deeper sense of play. Instances of boredom that often arise prior to engaged play show up that contemporary life has become preoccupied with consuming, producing, and mastering things. When things show up for us in only one way, dominated by the rhythms of familiar patterns, our capacity for boredom increases. Our bored mood, I would claim that's where we should become very attuned to our boredom, those places where you think that you're bored. Our bored moods help awaken us to the dangers within closed-off thinking that does not embrace creativity and openness. Okay. Yeah, so this is interesting, that play for Heidegger is just as original and basic as death. So he uses that language a lot, that being is playing with us. And it's quite serious. So he actually doesn't mean it in this completely lighthearted way, but it's the openness is there. And it's actually quite serious and will actually reveal to us the fundamentals of existence. So play for him, and the way I'm using it here, is a non-willful activity that's meaningful in itself, has no rational purpose or measurable usefulness, right? And this cuts against some of the dominant ways of thinking in our age. So if we think about the medical system, not individual doctors, right, but the systemization involved, or education, where there's a push for measure results, calculative results. What are the kids learning? Can I measure it? Can I measure it? Same thing with the healthcare system. Values of efficiency, flexibility, not very playful, right? Play takes some time. It takes openness, right? So I think this is real. It's reflecting upon play can help us better understand the dangers of our other ways of thinking, and can possibly hold open a way of escaping the dangers of this age and resisting what Heidegger calls calculative thinking. Much of our contemporary existence involves manipulating objects, even ourselves, in ways that maximize efficiency. So you think about the Department of Human Resources, that would have been we wouldn't be able to think of human beings as resources 60, 75 years ago. It's this idea that even human beings have become resources. Humans are the great calculators who strive for productivity. Interestingly, in the Lego movie, teamwork and rule following lead to happiness. Lord Business proclaims, let's take extra care to follow the instructions or you'll be put to sleep. Lord Business emphasizes following the rules that have been created by those in power. Teamwork is so awesome that you don't want to stand out. You want to just blend in with the team. You don't want to stand out, challenge the rules, or work in isolation from your team members. The movie displays the tensions we experience between wanting to be special and knowing that we often accomplish more when we collaborate and work together, even if that means abandoning what's special about us. Playing with Lego toys and the Lego movie both show up these tensions between the mass appeal of products and wanting to feel your creations are special and unique. We return and repeat our play and creating in part because we want to overcome this tension that can never be completely resolved. Even activities that bring us outside dominant and dominating ways of thinking can lead us right back to technological ways of relating to the world. Lego building often involves following instructions and conforming to instructions. I think there are instructions floating through these. My son doesn't tend to follow instructions, so they might be gone. But often you need to follow the instructions if you want to actually make what is on the picture. Yet, it holds open the potential for much more than following instructions. Too often, we regard play as that which gives us a break from the more important aspects of our lives marked by work. And so we engage in play in a guilty way. I'm going to do this, but I feel guilty about it. I feel guilty about it. I'm going to do this because this will help me get more productive. So I'm going to go, whatever it is, for me it might be play the piano. So I'm going to go play the piano, or I'm going to go read a poem, so then I can go back and do more philosophy, right? So the emphasis is still on the work part. So too often we regard play as that which is going to give us a break from the more important aspects of our lives that are marked by work, especially work that conforms with societal norms. All right, my philosophy doesn't always conform with societal norms, so maybe it's okay. It's important to become aware of how our moods, interests, and values influence whether our play becomes transformative or merely follows prepackaged instructions. So I don't want to have this naive notion of play that every kind of play is going to create this open and flexible mood. It won't. Play becomes especially important because it reconnects us with the awe and wonder that are foundational to what it means to be human. And I would claim I agree with Merleau-Ponty here. That to me is what philosophy is all about. It's about maintaining the awe and wonder of the world. So it's very childlike in that way. For if you have this conception of within childhood where the child experiences that awe and wonder in the world. So that preface that, of Merleau-Ponty, the Phenomenology of Perception, where he describes philosophy as in that way, I think is exactly truthful. Textbooks on existentialism often emphasize Heidegger's discussions of death and do not focus on how play is also foundational in his work. Indeed, play, especially a capability to remain open and creative, plays an important role in whether we're able to live authentically. Heidegger does say that our ability to accept our mortality has ethical and social implications. Indeed, it does. Unfortunately, the master narratives and master builders often cover up our playful moods in favor of what Heidegger calls calculative thinking. And this is the kind of thinking, he really works this out in the Discourse on Thinking. It's better translated. It's Gelassenheit, releasement. Not much of a discourse, quite frankly. It's very poetic. But calculative thinking values efficiency, flexibility, and adopts an attitude of mastery towards things. We assume we can use things, use them up any way we see fit. So this is Heidegger's term of Bestand. He says, you know, it was bad enough with Descartes where we saw everything as an object, where the subject is here, and the object is out there. Right? So that's problematic for him, the subject-object distinction. He thinks that in the age following Descartes, in this calculative age, we've turned things into what he calls Bestand. Right? So now everything's become standing reserve or resource, on call everywhere, waiting for us to do whatever the heck we want to do with it. Quick example, here, the lion in the cage for Heidegger is not really a lion. Right? So here we're using the lion, we've caged up the lion in the zoo because it's entertaining. We want to, or even if we want to learn more about the lion, it's still at the disposal of humans. We're doing whatever we want. There, the lion is not Bestand, is not standing reserve, on call, available for us to do whatever we want. There, the lion is in the lion's world and can open up a world of meaning that's not dominated and mastered by human beings. Physical building reminds us that our lives are very much like Lego creations that can be taken apart and destroyed at any moment. One of the most famous Lego slogans, "It's a new toy every day," reveals the toy's demand for constant renewal and creativity. Once we understand non-existence as a real possibility, our choices will change. Heidegger uses the word play to describe even the most serious aspects of how history unfolds and how we should respond to those aspects of life beyond our control. Play has a dual structure that can involve everyday playful encounters with others and the more serious play of time and history that are always just out of our control. Our existence is fundamentally and foundationally characterized by play. For Heidegger, this means that meaning and truth always have mysterious aspects. Not unlike our mysterious Batman friend who we meet in the movie, those aspects of existence remain hidden. All right, so in these last sections, I'm going to look and touch upon gender, and we're going to look at, trying to look at Lego as art. So Heidegger does think there are all these dangers within our age that we're turning ourselves and other people into Bestand. So everything is a resource, even ourselves. And he looks towards art, understood in a very broad way. So my estheticians in here know this, that he has a very broad understanding of art here. So he doesn't just mean paintings in a museum at all. In fact, everyday objects can be approached in this way. All right. Heidegger's writings, especially his later works, stress how art can help us break free from control and manipulation characteristic of calculative thinking. In The Origin of the Work of Art, Heidegger also uses an example that most would categorize as fine art, namely one of Van Gogh's portraits of what Heidegger understands to be peasant shoes. Famously, Heidegger writes that the shoes show up the world of the peasant, the work and toil of a life lived rooted to the earth. Though it is likely that the painting Heidegger studied was really a portrait of Van Gogh's shoes, this does not diminish the importance of his emphasis on how art works, not just scientific studies, open up truth. Using Heidegger's approach, we can analyze an ad about a more contemporary shoe example. So for example, you might know the ad from Nike where it says, "Just do it." We have the picture of the shoe. Even that ad for Heidegger would open up our values of just doing it, emphasis on action, you can overcome everything, you can have your mind overcome your body. We see another example of how art reveals normally hidden truths in a 2014 Lego ad. I don't have this ad, I'm sorry, but I'll just describe it. It focuses young girl Lego builders and emphasizes how girls can solve problems on their own. The ad is filled with images of girls building quite personal creations. Right? So there's a tension. I think I'm going to work this out more in the piece. I don't have much more room in my article to add stuff, but I wanted to have a whole section on gender. So I'm touching on this here, trying to figure out these issues of gender, because Lego has made some wrong steps, I would claim. So this is an ad from the 1970s. This is from when I was a kid. And we just have this very ordinary looking girl with her creation and her primary colored bricks, all right? So Lego has gotten into this is more contemporary. I don't know if you know, this is the movement now that Lego has aimed at trying to specifically target girls, and they're purple and pink bricks, and friendships being emphasized. So I have mixed feelings about all this, right? So this ad, I think, was better, the one I'm describing here. This was part of a keep building movement. It just showed girls building their own personal creations, in a way emphasizing, though, what was personal about it. So there's something that I want to explore here about the gendered aspects of building, but I don't have that all worked out yet, I will admit that. And Heidegger himself never explicitly discusses gender. That might be for the best, but he doesn't discuss it. His writings, though, especially his later writings, resonate with feminine and maternal language. You might just say he's appropriating this language and it's problematic. I don't think so. I think he has a less essentializing way of understanding the world than, say, this ad. This is I find that ad problematic. This recent Lego ad, though, the one I was talking about with the girls building in their personal creations, though it only shows girls, I think does reveal ways of building that are more sustainable for all genders. All right, so we can talk about that. I wanted to put this out here in case you want to talk about the gender part, because I want to work on that part of the paper. Because we're getting the transformative part, this transformative aspect of play. I'm going to claim that play can engender. Even though existentialism emphasizes the importance of individuality and the dangers of conformity, it also stresses that individuals always find themselves in a larger social and historical context. Our actions and choices influence and help create possibilities for those around us. Even our everyday encounters can become transformative. Play can release us from the demands and dangers of global technology and calculative thinking. Heidegger's writings on how relating with others and things in a more meditative way opens up ways of understanding the importance of play throughout one's life. Similarly, building with Lego bricks, even the new highly technologized Technic line. So there's a whole line now of Lego that turn into robots that you program with a computer. Even these move us into a space dominated by play, a space with different rhythms from our ordinary non-playful lives. Playtime unfolds with the rhythms usually reserved for artworks and creating artworks. Here, distinctions between the play world and the real world dissolve and blur as they do throughout the Lego movie. We're less interested in results and more focused on the process. We've all experienced instances of what Heidegger calls meditative thinking that breaks with calculative thinking's emphasis on how to get from point A to point B in the most efficient way. Meditative thinking is more free and playful yet important. All right, now here we're going to get into the building and dwelling part of Heidegger. So the title of this piece is from Heidegger's essay, Building, Dwelling, and Thinking. In one of his meditations on and critiques of architecture, Heidegger writes, "Only if we are capable of dwelling, only then can we build." And so he's become very important in the environmental movement, particularly the deep ecology movement, who've really made a lot about Heidegger's emphasis on dwelling. Here, Heidegger links the quality of our dwelling to the quality of our building. Authentic dwelling is marked by the virtues of sparing and preserving, environmental virtues. Heidegger would include what is now called interior design, a field now dominated by female designers, as part of construction and architecture. Unfortunately, these fields have now become separated, with engineering being privileged over both architecture and interior design. So there's a gendered movement within engineering, architecture, and interior design that Heidegger didn't have. Heidegger's emphasis on the interconnections among personal, social, and global building breaks down the boundaries that have developed among these fields. All building and dwelling are ways we make sense of the world and come to understand our existence. And many architects and engineers actually lament this division as well, and they're working to fix it, but not quickly enough. All building and dwelling are ways we make sense of the world and come to understand our existence. For Heidegger, these activities are rooted in a poetic, thoughtful encounter with the world. And so I'm going to end by looking at ways that we can think of Lego as art. Lego activities help connect adults and children and allow adults to retrieve their more childlike and playful nature. So I don't think you should put these away ever. So hopefully many of you have Lego or other toys around. It doesn't have to be Lego. But there's something interesting about the modular structure there that I think helps to work out some of these issues we've been talking about. Unlike other social variables, childhood is a social way of being everyone experiences. One's experiences vary in part because of these social differences and often vary in quite important ethical and moral ways. But in a broad sense, most have experienced the flow of time and intensity in the present characteristic of childhood. This immediacy and being in the present we feel as children only appears as such to the adult who retrieves the child's perspective. So the child is unaware of this, it's absent for the child. Heidegger describes children as in a twilight of existence and helps us understand how children can be part of the adult world, yet separate from it. Building and dwelling with Lego toys can help adults retrieve the more poetic modes of revealing discussed by Heidegger, especially in his later writings. Dwelling and building in worlds of Lego toys is one way to sustain that awe and wonder for authentic building and philosophizing. And so here, this is a nod to Heidegger's discussion of the Greek temple and the origin of the work of art. Yeah, so he thinks that artworks can show up the world and show up materiality as if for the first time. So this is a piece from Brancusi, where if we're using Heidegger's analysis, we'd say, you know, we see bronze in our everyday lives, but for Heidegger, the artwork can show up the bronze as if we're seeing it for the first time. So I think that Lego has the potential for that in some of these Lego sculptures. I think they have the possibility of showing up everyday objects, and these are plastic, right? So there's something really interesting there about what the Lego could reveal to us about the way that we are using materiality. And so these are the other pieces that I began with. And I'll end by noting that for Heidegger, this emphasis on care runs throughout the beginning of his writings to the end. And that, to me, is also what I think we can retrieve from our experiences with Lego toys, is that emphasis on care and actively caring. So just a little nod to the Blackwell series. If you're not familiar with it, they have philosophy and anything you can imagine, right? And if there's one that you'd like to see, that you're interested in, please talk to me, because I want to edit one of these at one point, probably when I'm not chair, and have a little bit of different time. But they have anything that you're interested in. There are, and some of the articles are better and worse than others, so you might talk to me. Let me know which ones you think are good, because a lot of us try to use them in our courses. Have any of you read any of these? Somehow I've ended up in the South Park one. My students, they made me do it. I'd never seen the show, and they said, you have to write about this in gender. That was years ago. So I haven't written any of this in a long time, and it's quite challenging. So I thank you, and I really appreciate in advance any comments that you have, because I'm tweaking the paper, so I'm really interested in what you have to say. Thank you.
Just to emphasize.
How he distinguishes a mood with emotion, feeling, you know, that kind of terms or concepts?
Yeah, so he has, that's a good question. He has separate terms. So sometimes he uses the term mood and he does use the term emotion. So it's Stimmung and Befindlichkeit are different from each other. So these the moods are these social ways that we can understand the world. An emotion for him would be, in fact, more personal. So he's trying to lay out something, and in fact, it really does resonate with Merleau-Ponty. But for Merleau-Ponty, our emotions are all social. But Heidegger's reserving that term mood for something that's this active way of attuning yourself to other people. Yeah. So as I said too, and he does think that the emotions can be more personal. So when he talks about the difference between, say, fear and anxiety, that's the fear part. So if you're afraid of a spider, right, that's a particular fear or emotion that you have. If you just have this general feeling of anxiety about something, right, that too is personal, but that it starts to take on that more social dimension and gets into the mood part. That can become pervasive. So that individual fear, let's say, of a spider, that's the more emotional, personal part. Yeah, but he has those two separate terms. I know I'm trying to unpack this too, about the difference between Stimmung and Befindlichkeit. But the Befindlichkeit is the attunement part.
So Merleau-Ponty didn't follow Heidegger.
No, I mean,
in trading emotions.
Yeah, Merleau-Ponty can give the easier answer, right? So, because I think that existence for Merleau-Ponty has these four levels, right? The perceptual, the emotional, the tactile, and the cognitive linguistic, and they're all fluid and dynamic, and they all interrelate. Yeah, I left him out of this, but to me, you need both of those pieces. Yeah, that's, so I'm leaving because he doesn't have enough of the body there. So I think, even though I agree with Heidegger in a lot of ways, I think adding on Merleau-Ponty or other philosophers can help us better even better understand.
So for Heidegger,
emotionality.
mood may be more ontological.
It is ontological.
Related to the structure or mode of design.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that's why anxiety gets into that.
More personal subjective.
Yes. Yeah.
He doesn't want to.
He doesn't want to talk about it as much.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I think is a problem.
Thank you.
Among other problems. I left a lot of the problems behind. Yeah, so thank you for raising that. Thank you. Yeah, Nathan.
So I'm interested in the contrast with the play and forms of life that Heidegger does not approve of, the sort of commodified.
Right.
But some of the language suggested, like, we need a return to play, or that it's foundational. But those feel like, I don't know, it's weird to think like the proper mode of life ought to be play, because it seems like that's not a very ethical mode of life. It's unwillful. It's one of the things you said about it, right?
You did.
I would be horrified by someone that treated their whole existence as just a game, right? So it seems like I get why play is a useful contrast, but I also it seems like a return to play looks disturbing to me in certain respects as the basis for how you live your life. And so what is there in between those two for Heidegger?
Okay. Yeah, and this might be misleading, right? In that I'm making these claims that play is serious for him, because in fact he thinks that that being plays in this way, right? So and he eventually stops talking about being and talks about the fourfold. So it's this fourfold of earth, sky, mortals, and immortals are at play. But it's serious for him. So yeah, he's actually not endorsing this, a carefree attitude where you don't care, but it's just letting go. It's actually, I think, and so Charlie, I have to talk to you about this more too, that it does see, and Heidegger had a lot of conversations with Buddhist scholars, right, in that emphasis on releasement and detachment. But he has, and his serious political and ethical failings are, it's difficult here to hold him up as okay. So you're letting me
just like
letting me
say meditative would also worry me a little bit.
And he doesn't mean it in the sense of
retreating from life.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, potentially. But I don't think that we have to interpret it in that way. That it's a retreat at all. But it's an aspect of life that he feels can easily become blocked if we think that we can control and dominate everything. I think I need to work that part out more. about the seriousness of the play, because I wouldn't want to say that. And he's clearly not saying we should sit around and use toys all the time. I don't mean to suggest that.
Right,
Yeah, I don't mean to suggest it as well. So I think I'll have to think about that.
But there's some quality to child's play that I guess
there's something
there's
there.
a useful example there that can guide us in even the
Because my
serious
claim would be
aspects of
to
our
becoming more ethical and attuned, right? Because there's a whole environmental piece that I had to leave out here that I've worked out in other domains about this preserving and cherishing is really active. So we might understand this preserving the earth as we're supposed to not do anything on the earth. We should stand back and look at the earth as an object. Heidegger would say no. That you need to have this useful, responsive way of interacting with the earth. So it is engaged, it is practical. He does think we need to still engage and work, but we need to do it in a way that we spare and preserve the earth. And we can't just do whatever we want to the earth. So it really there is an environmental import here that I think is important, right? That we can help to retrieve there, because maybe as we're caught up with dominating everything, if we step back through play, then we could become more ethically tuned. That would be my claim. And it's Lawrence Hatab who works out that Heidegger really does have this kind of foundational ethic, because he rejects any kind of ethical system in similar way that Nietzsche did too. But Hatab really thinks that Heidegger has this foundational ethic running through him. I agree with him there, but he's one of the few that's working that out. So I agree. So I don't want to claim that. Yeah, good.
I was
Thanks, Bruce.
curious how one of the moods, I think, was freedom.
Yes.
And I don't quite see where that enters into Heidegger's picture of things. I think of freedom as something that, as an existentialist, we all know what that means. It means a commitment to being authentic and so forth. How does freedom work in with play? I mean, as part of that, the Lego character is only free when he's following the instructions.
Right. Yeah, for Heidegger, and I think you get this, you really see this, I think, at its most simple in the piece Gelassenheit, where the releasement, the freedom, is a releasement towards the mystery, right? So it's this releasement towards that which is without why, that which we can't dominate and calculate and cannot completely understand.
So it's kind of like half of what Sartre's freedom is.
Yeah, well, yeah, right. Yeah, good.
So I really don't know Heidegger, but I wanted to get to play.
Okay, good.
Independent of Heidegger, because play has two pieces to it. It may have an element of freedom, but it's also very circumscribed among children. It is a very, it's practicing being human. So, when I look at the Legos.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I look at my Legos and I see, this is such a feminine display. All the people, I'm people. And then I looked at your display, which you've taken apart, which was...
Susie, you have more going on there.
Yeah, he had it looked like weaponry.
Okay.
And it was like, he took it apart.
I think you're projecting.
Well, I didn't know what this piece was.
It might help make your case.
But it seemed as if, I'm practicing being woman or female in terms of the human connectedness and my sense of, and males, if you watch them with Legos, they're building the rockets and the guns and the soldiers and so it's almost as if
Dylan, what did you build? I don't see any kind of anything shooting at anything. Right? This could be exploring space. Okay.
But I just see it as a very play. If you watch your young children playing, they're really practicing.
So you see this tension with the...
And yet there's a sense of freedom.
Okay, so you're...
That, you really can't control them.
Okay.
They're running around, they're on their swings, they're doing it. But they're also practicing, they're even on the swing, they're practicing, that movement of forward and back.
Right.
So
we talked about this in our aesthetics class, that when we were reading Freud and Jung, right, that children are oftentimes they're practicing being adults, and then adults sometimes, I'm emphasizing this ability to become more childlike. But you're right. There's oftentimes there's this modeling and mimicking of the adult world, which is why those early years are so interesting, because there is more flexibility where the gender is not quite the same thing. So I remember when my son was 3 and he loved pink, wanted to wear pink, loved it, And so I was surprised because I'm somebody that's taught gender since I was 22. So I didn't have my son until I taught gender a lot. And so I had reactions to all this that I didn't think I was going to have, because as a gendered feminist, I thought gender's fluid and it's it should be open and we shouldn't have and then when my son wanted to go out to nursery school and wear pink to all this and behave in a certain way, I thought, yeah, of course, I'm going to embrace this, but I worried about him. I thought, you're going to I'm going to let you do it, of course, but what's going to happen to you? So the world was creeping into my parenting in a way that I hadn't quite appreciated when I was just teaching gender at a younger age. I want to figure this. I want to look at this because there are issues.
Please Touch Museum, and I assume you've been there.
Yes.
Okay. And you have the Alice in Wonderland is just filled more with the girls, and then they have that space section is filled more with the boys. And I was watching all of this separation already at about 4 or 5. The 3-year-olds were still. But as they got older, the bricks and the trucks and the construction section, so they were already practicing at 5 and 6, entering into.
Which is highly problematic as we look at the number of women in engineering and the number of women in architecture is bad as well, even though it's more artistic than the engineering fields as well. The numbers are bad. So I spend a lot of time with architects. My husband's an architect, so I speak with architects a lot. And so that's where I started working out the issues about the interior design. And architects are very concerned about that as well, about the division within the field. So my hope is that there's something here, I haven't quite worked it all out yet, that this earlier building too is important. Yeah, so that's good. You're observant at the police. There's a lot going on there. Observant there. Any questions from my students? I know some of my own students are here too.
A lot of people say something against playing as bad habits, especially video games.
Yes.
But I think it's a form of learning new stuff.
Oh, even the video games, you mean?
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
or Lego, the toys, or the video games, the fictional games. I think it's a form of learning. I mean, the reason I choose philosophy as a major is a result of my video game playing.
Wait, say that again?
Yeah, because I've played so many video games, I choose philosophy.
Okay.
So I think it's a form of learning new stuff.
So even the video games can be a form of learning, you think?
Yeah.
You have to think about that. And there is a Lego video game. So I was talking with somebody about that game, which I think is better than some other video. I'm not an expert on the video game aspect of all this, but I know a lot of parents still like the Lego, as I was saying at the beginning of my talk, because it appears non-technological, right? So I've made a claim throughout here too that it's still tied in with the technological and potentially with commodification too, because this is being given to us from a company, right, that has certain instructions and putting certain demands on us. Yeah, so I have to think about that, there's some really good video games too that I would agree with you can be really instructive. So I agree. And I certainly think we can learn a lot from thinking about, in a philosophical way, the way that we're building with Lego toys. We should talk about the video game part.
I mean, one connection with video games is, I'm not an expert on video games at all, I haven't kept up, but a lot of them are much more open-ended than
They
used to
are,
be,
right,
which would connect up with the Lego more than maybe like playing the games we grew up
The
with.
first-person shooter ones that are, building cities and.
Well, that's clearly in my,
That's interesting.
Those are forms of life.
And potentially addictive in a different way because they don't end. That's a potentially scary, because Minecraft is kind of like Legos with built, and that's, a lot of kids really like that. So it's like the kind of a video game kind of Lego, but it can be, I think, quite addictive because it never ends. You can just keep creating and talking about it. So I think there's Exactly. That's another paper.
So I have like about 3 or 4 different questions, but I'm going to
Okay.
ask sort of the one that occurred to me at the end, because you're sort of talking about, you're talking a lot about the open-endedness about this, about the sort of importance of play and stuff like this, and the way in which, this particular form of play seems, and the modularity of it seems to create, a possibility of a certain kind of creative, but also sort of preserving attunement to sort of, all this is great. But then I'm also thinking about the materiality of these things.
Right.
Right. So when you're kind of going to, you're going to these sort of places with a sort of Heideggerian deep ecology, but at the same time, I mean, we are in fact producing millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of non-biodegradable little bricks that are just sort of proliferating throughout the world, and so there you go. like what's at stake in the materiality of these? Because I think that also raises the question of it is still a very highly commodified form of things, and it still fits into a series of systems. It invites us to have a different kind of relationship, but it's systemically, there's a contradiction there a little bit.
I agree.
So anyway, thoughts?
I do. Well, I think there's an issue. So, but the issue, and so perhaps this is a place where engineers can respond too in helping us. So we need better K-cups for people, because these become quite pervasive, and we need different Lego. We need something. Presumably, somebody could create a more eco-friendly Lego. So, right. So I mean, most of these were bought on eBay, so they're recycled, and people make a big deal of talking about how they've washed their Lego 5 times before they sell it to you or something. So that's a big deal. But that's not dealing with the issue that Dr. Kazarian raises. So the emphasis in Heidegger would be that in reflecting on our play philosophically, that it would bring us to that materiality, and would bring us to a problem, right? And bring us to perhaps abandoning it, and perhaps becoming more creative, in either to create something new that wouldn't be so problematic, or just to abandon it. So that's where I was thinking too, that you might end up abandoning it and think, well, now I've been given this by this system, I don't need this. I can really step outside of it, even further. So there is that tension. And so I think in playing with the Lego toys, it's that corporate part is there. And I do wonder for some people if that is part of the problem, even for children, right? So if they really want to get really creative, they might say, well, I don't need to follow this, because the movie plays around with that. Do we always just have to build exactly what the instructions say, or can we just mix them all together? You can see what happens in my house. This is why we don't keep the sets together. So everything is more, free flowing. But you're right. So presumably for Heidegger, that would show up. That's what this materiality is, and we would respond to it.
And with that, I have to.
Okay. Is that it?
We're out of time, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Those were good questions.
One more lecture.